Hello everyone, my name is Nilsor and welcome to my vault. Today in this video I'm going to talk about my opinion on Fallout 4. After having spent around 150 hours in the game, and having explored most of the map, the quest and the 4 possible endings, I believe to have a fairly good view of the question. Be aware that this video will contain spoilers, so I would recommend that you have finished the game at least once before watching it. So let's get started by talking about the good things that I liked about Fallout 4. Much like Bethesda's predecessor, Fallout 4 is really enjoyable by the great exploration opportunities it provides. The sceneries are varied, from the desolated growing sea to the Boston ruins, passing by the high-tech institute. Tons of details in the environment have been added, with some scenes staged to tell a story through it, most of it through terminals and skeletons. Fallout 4 is therefore very compelling to explore. The craft system is easy to understand and well done. Through it is given an actual reason to loot all the junk laying around, which I thought added to the feelings that we are in the wasteland by putting upfront the importance of scavenging. Previously, you merely took mostly what you needed in terms of weapons, armor or drugs, and nothing else. Going along the crafting system is a custom-made power armor. The jetpack in particular is cool. Adding also to the feeling of being in the wasteland are the weather effects. The radiation storms is particularly unique and a nice touch. The new VATS system that slows down time is actually not bad. Whether it is this mechanism or the previous full stop one are fine with me. Overall, the combat feels more dynamic and cool. Customization of your character is nicely done and better than in the previous games. Radio songs remains really nice, my favorite new one being The End of the World from Skeeter Davis. And that's about it for the good points. Now to the not so great ones. Fallout 4 has disappointed me mainly because it feels like a shooter first and an RPG second. This shows essentially when looking at how the story is paced. First, it's basically on rails. Essentials or unkillable NPCs are littering the game, making it frustrating and taking away the player's agency, forcing you to follow this one narrow path the game designer have decided upon and not another one. So much for player's freedom. Next to that, the factions, which can barely be called that, more like simple settlements, aren't really important until you arrive at the moment when the story is branching, but not before. You can help the Brotherhood, the Railroad and the Institute all at the same time, despite their own agendas being different. The Minutemen are barely relevant until they decide, out of the left field, that the Institute needs to be erased, but not the other factions. This irrelevance of the factions is mainly shown by the disappearance of your reputation with each one of them. Although I find these factions better than in Fallout 3. No more is it a black and white fight between the Knight in Shining Armor Brotherhood of Steel and the Nazi Enclave. But they still remain fairly in your face and lacking layers. Here we have the Fascist Brotherhood of Steel, which is all about following orders, the We Don't Care About Anyone But the Thins Railroad, the Goody Two-Shoes Minutemen, and the Leave Us Alone Do Our Science Filthy Wastelanders Institute. Looking back at New Vegas, we had the dictatorship slave-happy citizen that still managed to put order and security in a lawless wasteland, the corrupted imperialist New California Republic, the enlightened dictator Mr. House who cared little about people yet wanted for New Vegas to get back to its former glory, to name a few. Not to mention the possibility to go independent, which also guaranteed that people will be master of their own fate, would also increase instability and insecurity in the Mojave Wasteland. All this railroading doesn't really give an incentive to do another playthrough. You will always end up being the loving parent in search of their son, which, by the way, is lazy in terms of imagination. Again with the family plot as motivation. Speaking of, your character has a pretty heavy backstory and behavior already imposed on him or her before you start the game. Playing a standoffish parent is not possible, as well as being in an homosexual relationship. Since this is Fallout, it wouldn't be surprising if gay couple could go to a lab to make a baby out of both their DNA in a tube. That or adoption. And before you complain about who cares, ask yourself how you would have reacted if you had to play a gay couple without having the possibility of being a straight one. All this RPG-light atmosphere boils down a lot to the dumbed-down dialogue system. Consisting mostly of yes, no, more info and sarcastic answers, it limits greatly the depth and flexibility of it. Goodbye to long and complex conversations like the one we had with Ulysses. The dialogue wheel is not necessarily bad in and on itself, like we saw in Inquisition, where the responses were faithful to the hints and were varied. The voice acting was okay, but I can't help but think that it is one of the reasons why there were so few dialogue choices. Next to that, I thought the quest design was clunky. It doesn't really drive you to anything. The I need to find my son quest can be put on hold for months without consequences or logic. Some events like the rebuilding of Liberty Prime or the powering up of the Institute's nuclear reactor will still happen even if you don't help. And despite the fact that when you actually help, the NPCs are all like, we would have never been able to do this without you. Liars. Therefore, I can't help but feel that your actions seems to have few consequences most of the time. Like when I wasn't sure which faction to join for the final parts of the main quest, but after I ended up capturing that synth at Libertalia for the Institute, I thought that I've blown my chances with the railroad. But no. The only little thing that was nicely implemented was how some people in towns reacted to what had happened lately. At least they took that out of New Vegas. The perks system feels too much dumbed down and lacking control. Like how could I specialize my character in energy weapons like I always did? Since there is no perks to boost your damage with plasma or laser weapons, I had to rely on guns for the most part of my playthrough. Not to mention that it took out the possibility of using skills during dialogues. Before, skills, tech skills and personality traits greatly helped into building your character and making it feel like your own. The lack of them is therefore detrimental. The user interface for PC is just terrible. It's strictly a console port, which is why the key binding is so horrendous, with some keys having different actions. It's not like there is a shortage of key on the keyboard, people. Just for example, look at E that when pressed for a little bit means that you can move around objects, but it is also for exiting your power armor. And I'm not even talking about the settlement construction mode where WQSD controls seems hard-coded. This whole section should have been in third person and using the mouse. Now in the let's sneak peek a bit more category, the general theme of the game remains fairly superficial and barely delved upon. This theme of getting over your past to be able to move forward remains visible only when focusing on companions and the main quest. Compared to New Vegas, the general theme was how to deal with the past. Revive it, deny it, build from it, obsess over it. In the game, basically every companion's main quests and faction quests were linked to that overall narrative, giving a more natural and powerful significance than in Fallout 4. The current state of the Commonwealth was poorly explained in my opinion. Supposedly, the Institute prevented any form of organized society beyond single settlements. In 200 years, it seems hard to believe. Super mutants are in town with no explanation. These creatures are supposed to be human infected by the FAV virus, which was not in the Boston area, except in an Institute's lab which showed no sign of an outbreak. Did they come all the way from the capital wasteland, or was it just convenient and to hell with logic? Same thing can be said about the Gunners group. Given how powerful they are, it is incomprehensible that they haven't formed their own faction in the game, and seems barely more than a high-tech group of raiders. Being able to have only one companion at the same time is just nonsense. I really don't get why we can't bring more with us. Also, no more companion wheel? Did Bethesda really learn nothing from New Vegas? Because if they did, maybe they would have understood that putting romance in a game like this should be more than just 2 or 3 added dialogue and that's it. Want to know how to do good romance? Look at BioWare. Being fair, the companions are more developed than in Fallout 3, but they are still less well written than Obsidian did, and that's only in part due to the restricted dialogues. The fact that areas that were previously cleared always respawn enemies after a while, because reasons, is just a lazy design choice. No survival mode like in New Vegas, where you had to manage your food, water and sleep bars. That's kind of a shame, considering how they managed to make scavenging more relevant. Radiation has been dumped down. Now it only takes out life points, whereas before it also impacted other attributes. No recycled ammunitions, which is a shame, because then a lot of the missions you decide to do can be weighted upon how many bullets it's going to cost you. The radio news are a nice touch, but it feels light comparing to the reactivity of the one from New Vegas. This is mainly because since your actions doesn't really matter and the game never pushes forward the factions, only few of your actions made it on the air. And finally, no ending slides. They are there to make you feel that what you did had an actual impact, especially regarding the companions. Their absence just sucks. Maybe that explains why we were robbed of Ron Perlman voice acting this time around. Does this mean that Fallout 4 is non-canon? Overall, I didn't hate Fallout 4, but I didn't love it either. I've sunk more than 100 hours into it, so it did some things right, especially when it comes to exploration. But the lackluster of real RPG elements is what really doesn't sit well with me, and doesn't give me a real interest in going back to do another playthrough. I have been Nilsor, and this was my opinion on Fallout 4. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.